Hi, it's Ricky of Moshville Times here once again. Now, tonight I have a legend of the UK death metal scene, none other than Andy Whale. Can I just say before we start this interview, when I was a teenager, I would play air drums with my dad's garden canes that I nicked from his garden to your songs. That's how much of an influence you had in my early musical career. So how the hell are you, Andy? I'm obviously delighted to see you.
No,
Must be exciting times.
I'm fine. Yeah, like I say, just sort of like sitting back and seeing what's happening with the DeathCollector album, really. Which all seems to be there seems to be a lot of positivity around it. So, which is yeah, good. But I mean, it's funny really because I tend to keep off social media as much as I can. So I just really I mean, I know it sounds a bit. What I'll tend to do is I'll delete Facebook off my phone, and then I won't go on it for 4 or 5 days, and then I'll just nip back on and see what it is, and then I'll have a little splurge on it where I'll stay on it for 3 or 4 days, and then think, what am I doing this for anyway?
You're just watching people's dinners and stuff like that, what they're having for their dinner that night. I know.
Yeah. So but like I say, it all seems really good, and everybody seems into the album, and it's nice. It's nice to be, especially like I say, a couple of years ago, I thought I was going to completely give it up, really, due to my shoulder and all that kind of thing. But so it's nice to, in a way, be back doing something that. That I've really enjoyed doing as well. I mean, this album I've really enjoyed doing this album.
Do you know, you've answered half a dozen of my bloody questions already. Just with your response. But I'm only kidding on. But like you say, DeathCollector's just released their debut album, Death's Toll, last month. So how does it feel to finally release it after all the blood, sweat and tears that you put into it? And do you think, was it held up? Could this have been released like a year and a half ago or something like that, and it's just the way the world was?
Well, no. I think no. I don't think it was held up at all. I mean, basically, if I go back a couple of years, you're probably looking at 2020, when I did my last Memoriam show. About 2 or 3 months after that, my shoulder just I had a thing called rotator cuff tendonitis. When I actually sat down and thought about it and looked into when the symptoms had started with the physio, it had gone back to I think it had gone back to about 2017 when I first got the niggle of my shoulder going. But obviously, because you're doing shows and you just crack on with it, don't you?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, obviously at that point, I had to turn around to the Memoriam lads and say, I just can't do it. I physically couldn't hold a stick for more than 5 minutes. I mean, the cramp in my arm was just awful. So anyway, and obviously they just wanted to keep things moving. So, I mean, that that's the way of the world, isn't it? So realistically, I think no, because I mean, even saying, did the pandemic hold it up? No, in one way, it probably helped it because it gave me time as Andy Whale to get over my shoulder with the physio. I had time to just sort of like do exactly what the physio told me to. I didn't have to sort of like play the drums. I didn't have to do anything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So lockdown, all that pandemic actually gave me the time to, sort myself out, really.
Yeah.
And then the same thing. Then the pandemic sort of kicked in. Well, everybody was sort of like trying to do stuff online and all that. And I thought, well, maybe I could do something like that. And that's when me and Mick got together. I mean, me and Mick had met before when we did a couple of shows over in Ireland. Anyway, like with those guys. And he was up for sort of. He was up for sort of like helping me out. And all it was realistically, it was just going to be a sort of like couple of covers, just see how my shoulder went on, really. And as time went on, I mean, me and Mick sort of like we did 3 covers, and then we just sort of like thought, well, why are we doing these covers? Should we just do some of our own stuff? So realistically, pandemic gave me time to get over my shoulder, and then it gave us the idea, which I think if the pandemic hadn't have happened, I don't know what would have happened, but I think it's just a number of things coming together, and we've ended up with DeathCollector basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think if it hadn't been for the pandemic, it probably wouldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? Because Mick would have been busy with his stuff. You know, it's just the way of the world, is it? You know.
Yeah.
So
how's your shoulder now? Is it much better now? You're fully recovered?
It's still sometimes when it's like. I mean, I'm 58 now, so you know, every so often you get up in the morning and things ache. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just life, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
life. It's just life. So no, I mean my shoulders, you know, I mean it tweaks a bit. It tells me it's still there, but
you know the exercises to do with it to relax
it.
Yeah,
I do a lot of swimming as well. So you know, I go swimming once a week and just try and keep active and you know, sort of. So it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So Desto was reviewed here at Moshville Times by Paul, who said that 9 tracks of thunderously brutal death metal, muscles glistening with definition and crafted to deliver maximum damage from start to finish. So you can't really argue with that. But how have the reviews been for the album so far? And you must have had like reviews from all over the world for this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I mean, about 90% of them have been massively, you know, positive, really into it. You know, nothing but good words. We've had a couple of ones where I don't know, did the person properly listen to it before they reviewed it? You know, and then tried to say, I can't remember what they said, that the drumming was split into 4 sections, which unfortunately he doesn't understand. I suppose in a way, well, he would know, but there are 4 elements to the drumming, and it's in a way that the drumming reflects the sort of 4 parts of not my life as a drummer, you know, not my career, because I haven't really had a career as a musician. It's just more of a part-time thing, but you know, so so effectively from a drumming aspect, what I wanted to do with this album was, you know, I wanted to combine all the different sort of like aspects of my drumming life, really, i.e. the punk side of it, the hardcore side of it, the death metal side of it, and then the bolt thrower side of it as well. Do you know what I mean? But still keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
You know, so although they sort of like said, oh, you know, split into 4, yeah, it is for a good reason. You know what I mean? It was there to sort of like try something I wanted to show. But I mean, yeah, so on the whole, there's been a couple of negatives, but you know what? Who ever expects to release an album that someone, you know, you're always going to get people that really like it, section of people that think, yeah, that's a good album, and a section of people that just think that is a big pile of crap. Do you know what I mean? And it's music, isn't it? You know, I mean, it's in a way. I mean, you hear it quite a lot of times as well. Like, you know, where musicians, it's really, really frustrating because you put 2 years of your time into an album. You know, most albums take 2 years from start to finish. And then you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into it. You know, you get someone to do a really good job mixing it, and you're really happy with it. And then you hand it over to be ripped to shreds, basically. Or, you know, people say that's brilliant, or, you know, but it's the only, I don't know, it's the only career in the world, I think, just sort of like do it, hand it over, and then just, you know, leave people to it, really. I think you have to, I think one thing I've learned from, you know, being in all the bands I've been in, you're never going to please everybody. So, do you know what? Just with this album, it's with the lads as well. I'm not just speaking for myself, but it's just an album that we're really pleased of and wanted to do as well, you know. And at my time in life, and in the, you know, if people don't like it, that's fine. You know, I'll just do what I want now. You know what I mean? And,
And that's it. And that's it. At the end of the day, you release the album for yourselves, and if there's other people out there that like it and appreciate it, then it's a bonus, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I'd say that to anybody who's starting out in music. Just concentrate on what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? Because you're never going to please everybody. You know, if you try to please everybody, you'll just get moaned at for doing it anyway. So just do what you want to do. Enjoy yourself doing it. And you know what? If it doesn't work, go and do something else. You know what I mean? You've tried. It's not like you can't do. It's not like you can't be in another band or you can't. You know, it's a learning curve. Just keep moving forward, basically, don't you?
That's it.
And if you're lucky, after what 40 years making music, you're doing an album that you're happy with. There you go.
It's a win-win, absolute win-win. But I'm going to go back a wee bit, just a couple of years. I mean, as you can probably see behind me, I do a radio show on a Thursday night, and I've played Darkened a lot of times on my radio show, especially the Black Winter EP. And Black Winter and Blood, especially the songs, especially. So, but what made you end the collaboration with Darkened and start this project with DeathCollector? Was it a case of you just wanted to focus on the one band, and Darkened were maybe going on to bigger things?
Well, yes and no. I mean, realistically, when me and Hemper started Darkened, there was always an unwritten rule and sort of like a handshake sort of thing that we wouldn't do live shows. It was always going to be a project, if you know what I mean. Just to the logistics, you know, of everybody being all over the world. And I was quite happy with that anyway. Like, you know, and I was quite happy to stick with that. But when I started with DeathCollector, it was a case of, well, you know, I just wanted to concentrate especially with my shoulder as well. I just wanted to concentrate myself on one band, and also as well, it's like with everybody. I mean, the last live show I did was I think March 2020. You know, we're at Denmark, I think, with Memoriam, and I just had this thought that, you know, I'd like to do some live shows as well. Do you know what I mean? Not many, but, you know, I'd like to get back out there and sort of like get back doing a few live shows. And but realistically, it was sort of like, because I mean, obviously, you know, I work, I've got a family, you know, so I didn't want to spread myself too thin. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to stick with DeathCollector because, you know, that's the chance of me getting back out there and doing some live shows. You know, it's like with Darkened and Memoriam in a way, like, you know, doing the two bands. You know, I've got, like, you know, say for instance, I had the second Darkened album on my computer, working on that, and the next thing is, like, you know, I've got like Cole going, well, yeah, we're going to start doing this, and it's just constantly juggling. Do you know what I mean? And you start to spend. I mean, when I was doing the Darkened albums as well, you know, I was up in my bedroom, you know, like me where I got all my, you know, in here basically, all my drums and all that, and I was in there for hours and hours and hours, and, you know, it just takes up far too much time. Whereas with DeathCollector, you know, me and Mick Mick come up with an idea, or I'll have a drum idea, and we'll bash them backwards. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, he'll send the guitar idea, I'll have a listen to it. Next day, I'll just do a few ideas to it, send it back to him, and it's a lot more sort of like crunched together over a longer period of time. You know, so it just works better. But I mean, I've just got to focus myself on one thing, and unfortunately I sat down and thought, well, you know, DeathCollector. But it's a shame really, because I really did like Darkened. I love working with the lads. They're a lovely bunch of lads, and the music that even the stuff they're bringing out now as well, you know, it's great, you know what I mean? So, but
It doesn't.
You know,
I mean, it seems as if you're still all friends. I mean, I know that Gord Olson
yeah,
has
yeah,
done a couple of things with you since then, so
yeah.
there's no.
Yeah, Gord is an absolute genius. He should Gord should be one of these really renowned, you know, sort of like
Yeah,
engineers. But I suppose because he's over in Canada, he's been forgotten to a certain extent. But he's an absolute genius, you know, and he's a
yeah,
really nice guy as well. So
yeah,
but yeah. So you know, I've got a lot of time for death, you know, darkened, sorry, like, you know, but and I
yeah.
still get on with the lads and everything, but
Good.
I've just got to prioritise things. That's what
Yeah.
it is, you know.
Sure. Sure. Thanks for that. Although this is your debut album, were the thoughts of it ever being your second EP, since your debut album Death's Toll includes the 3 songs from the EP? Or were you always deciding, right, no, we're going to do an album now?
Uh, no, not really. I mean, all it was really was getting the 3 tracks together, and then we recorded those, and you know, we had the ideas for. I think we had the idea for more songs, but it was just a sort of, you know, I'm not. I mean, it was just the interest that we got. I mean, because we released
Things
the
up.
EP. You know, we just did it to sort of like work together, really see how things work between us, you know,
Yeah.
and how we could work together remotely in a way at that time, and it just worked so well. And then obviously we got offered the record deal from Prosthetic, and so that, I mean, that's really what pushed us to do the album. Really, it was a case of, you know, somebody said, well, we'd like you to, you know, we'd like to sign you. So then we had to do, you know, I mean, obviously they said, well, we want, I can't remember, they want 8 or 9 tracks, 38 minutes of music. And we were like, hang on a minute. And that's why we ended up sticking the 3 tracks on, because otherwise we'd have to have made, you know, a load more songs. But yeah, it was nothing was really, nothing with DeathCollector was really planned, really.
Yeah.
You know, for myself, you know, for my own side of it, I mean, I know Kieran's really proactive and he's always working on it, you know, but for my side of it, I just like to sit back and see what happens. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not. Do you know what? It doesn't bother. You know, it's great. I'd love to do some shows. I'd love to, you know, I'd love to get back out on the road. Just doing shows here and there. I don't want to do tours.
I'll be
I
going to,
don't
yeah.
want to, you know, I don't want to be out on the road for 6 weeks like when I was like with Bob. So it's just that at my age, I just can't be asked. But you know, but I like to sit back and let things, see what happens in a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and well, look where we've got so far. You know, but we've not done too bad. But I know behind the scenes, Kieran does work. He does work his socks off, basically.
He does a lot of moaning as well. I'll give you that.
Well.
But yeah, I know we're going to talk about the live environment later on, because I do know what you have planned. But with the newer songs that are on the album, then how would you say they differ from the original 3 from Time's Up? Or is it more of the same formula?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, well, I think that I think the structure of the newer tracks on there are probably stronger than the first 3. But the first three songs are fairly strong, really. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, we've tried to keep a sort of like formula, really, of, you know, mixing it up between, you know, sort of like death metal and hardcore and splash, you know, dropping the odd bit of punk in there as well. But you know, I mean, you know, so I think they're pretty much just. I think when you're working on any album, really, one track leads to another, doesn't it? And then it leads to another one, and you know, they sort of like they veer off, don't they, in their own, you know, find their own sort of like path, really. And it's just, I mean, like the thing is with all the songs of the album, myself and Mick, and even the tracks that Lee worked on as well, we didn't overcomplicate them. You know, we didn't keep going back to them. You know, we got them to a point, and you know, and then we thought, right, that's it. And so they weren't overworked in a way, and I think that's what that's what gives them the sort of that's what gives the album that whole sort of like live feel as well. You know, that energy. You know, it's just worked. We worked on it, and then if we thought the track was good, it was like, yeah, that's done. You know, I mean, like in the studio as well. You know, the way I recorded the drums to it was Mick just gave me a guitar track with the, you know, a click track, and all I did was just went in there and did 3 good versions of each song. If I dropped a stick or cocked up, I stopped. You know, we didn't drop in. The songs are all just that. What you hear on the album is just me playing, and then Gord's taking it away and sort of like, you know, obviously change the sounds and all that, you know, and sort of like, but realistically, the drums on the album are live, and I think that's the same what we Mick did as well. He just went in there and blasted them out in a day or two, you know, and I think that just gives it that feel as well, which gives it extra energy as well.
So you guys, you and Mick just knocked it out. Was it Lee or was it Kieran that delayed things and just taking their time and they're not happy with themselves? And
I don't know. I mean,
no, I'm sorry, kidding.
Well, I mean, Lee was, it was weird because Lee was working on his own really, and so you know, he sort of like worked on his bit. Obviously Kieran, we had to work on sounds and mic settings as well. I think he had to do a little bit of work with Gord, because he had a microphone, I believe, that he bought, which was exactly the same as Gord's, like, you know, this, I don't know what it is, this big thing. And but yeah, so they have to get the settings right, and you know, to get the sound right and all that kind of thing. But realistically, everybody just did their bit. I mean, the delay on the album, the reason why the delay on the album, we finished the album and handed it over just before New Year's last year.
So that's 6 months to get out, yeah.
Yeah, the delay was we wanted. Well, we spoke to the record. We spoke with the record company, and we wanted to make sure that the vinyl and the CD were out at the same time.
Okay.
So effectively, we gave them a time, a date stamp of 6 months. But then what happened was 3 months later, all the vinyl turned up.
Ah.
But the thing is, you're already on a conveyor belt, aren't you?
Yeah.
Releases, aren't you? You know, not having to go to the record label, but that was the same when we were at Nuclear Blast. You'll get your slot, and it's sort of like a big.
They must have a good pressing plan, because there's a good couple of interviews where I've said you would need to give them the stuff this time last year for it to come out on vinyl just now, you know. So they must have a. It's a shame that we don't have many more in the UK. I think there's one in Middlesbrough that my friend used, but there's nothing in Scotland, for example, which is a shame.
I mean, it is getting a lot better now, I think. Like, you know, it's not. I mean, obviously, it's not as long as what it was, but yeah, I mean, that's the real reason what caused the delay, really, was waiting for the vinyl. But then, you know, then next thing is we had vinyl, so it's just one of those things. But I really didn't want sort of like, you know, 2 dates, one for when you're going to get the CD, and then one for, you know, the vinyl. It's best to wait. So at the end of the day, it's really hard as well, sort of like sitting around, because you have to wait. Then you have to wait 3 months for that period until you get to the start of the pre-sale and all that kind of stuff, don't you? So it's quite hard, sort of. It's quite hard to sit on your fingers, really. It's not say anything. It's just, you know what? It's just part of being in a band, isn't it? Really, that's what it is. So. Well,
you enjoy your beer, mate. You enjoy your beer. Very
nice, yeah. Yeah, very nice. Don't taste like 7%.
Well, we'll see if the karaoke machine will tell us different. But yeah, so obviously the guys that are in the band are from different parts of the country, and you talk over the internet. But how was it actually meeting them in the flesh? I think how long did you have together to get things done? Because I think in that time you released a couple of videos as well, didn't you? Like studio videos.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, the way it was, we've met, we class them as band weekends basically. So Mick flies in from sort of like Limerick, not literally from Limerick, but he flies in from Shannon, I think it is. And then basically what we do is and Lee comes down from sort of like the Lake District, and the lads just stop over. We normally meet up on a Friday, go out for a couple of beers, and then we'll rehearse on Saturday, go out for a few more beers on Saturday nights.
There's a recurring theme here.
Yeah, rehearse on Sunday, and then go out for a few beers on the Sunday. Because I live in where I live, it's sort of in Birmingham. I live in a place called Sturchley, and it's up and coming. It's one of the most up and coming places in England to live at the moment. Basically, it's all very much sort of like artisan breweries and artisan sort of like bars and restaurants. And so where I live, you've got actual sort of like breweries that do sort of like, all the proper IPA, that kind of stuff. You've got you've got three actual breweries you can go and drink in that brew their own beer. You've got about four, five tap rooms as well, where you can go in where they've got all the guest beers, and then you've got a couple of pubs as well, which just sell all sort of like, sort of like normal beer, and then all your guest ales as well. So, and then effectively you've got lots of restaurants that sell, well, like little sort of like pop-up bars that sell food, like Vietnamese food and Thai food, and
nice.
I'll tell you, if you ever get down to Birmingham, you have to come over because it's really good night out. And so basically, we just usually drink loads of super strong ale and get really drunk.
That's just disgusting. I thought you would have learned better at your age.
Well, I mean, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I always say I won't, but normally after 5 pints anyway, I have to go home and fall asleep. I fall asleep in front of the telly. So I watched Quadrophenia the other day. It's one of my favourite films, and but I don't know if you've ever watched it. You've got the scene where he comes in and he's sort of like, what is it? His wet jeans are wearing. His mum and dad, like. What is it? They're sat there and the dad's falling asleep at the settee, and the wife's looking at him to wake up. Well, that's me.
That's you. Christ away.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Andy. I really do appreciate your time. But we touched a wee bit on it earlier. How good was it to get Gord Olsen of Darken to mix and master the album for you? And did they give you guys a few pointers for the next album or the next release?
Well, realistically, I mean, really, from my point of view, if Gord hadn't have done it, I don't know if I would have wanted to do the album, because I'm not. I can, in a way, Gord, it's weird really, but Gord knows what the record needed to sound like. Do you know what I mean? He's got a really good ear for, metal and death metal, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, so effectively, as soon as we did the 3-track EP, it was that straight away. Gord's doing the album. Do you know what I mean? He really, I can't say it enough. He was the guy who was going to do it. I had total faith in it. I mean, even when we were getting the first mixes and people were going, "Oh, well, this needs to be louder and that needs to be louder."
Oh, that would be Kieran then. His vocals.
Yeah, my vocals. Yeah, so I'm like, so it is, but. But so I always knew that Gord was he was the only person who's going to do that album. As did he give us pointers for the next album? Well, no, because he's not that kind of person. He's really laid back. He just he just sort of like if you need it, it's like with Lee, and Kieran as well. I suppose with Mick as well. They went to him and asked him his opinion, what he thought it needed, and he'll just quite calmly tell you what it is. He's just one of those guys where he's just really calm and easy to get on with. He doesn't get stressed. He doesn't start having a go at anybody, and sort of like he doesn't start accusing people of being unprofessional, that kind of thing. He's just really easygoing. As for ideas for the next album, well, no, not really, but but that's for me, Mick and Lee. We'll come up with. Well, we've already got a few ideas for the album anyway, but we'll see where it goes. Really, it's another blank canvas, isn't it? We know what we want to aim for, but it'll end up being what it ends up being.
Absolutely. So we could say that he's secretly the fifth member of the band. What he brings to it,
Or the sixth member. Hopefully live there will be a fifth member, because we don't want to go. We don't want to go out not being able to reproduce the album as it is.
Yeah.
So effectively, but Gord is probably the fifth member of the band. If we're going to do another album, I'd like to. But in one way, I'd like to. With the last album, I went into the studio and recorded in a little studio by where I live, really.
Yeah.
Mick went into a studio with Kieran, one of his mates, but Lee and sort of Kieran did it at home. Well, I'd like in a way for them to maybe go into a studio and do something, and then send everything over to Gord. But we'll see how the finances juggle up, really, because that's what it comes down to.
Unfortunately, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
What we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, but going back to the recording of the album, how was the recording for you personally? Like, did it take you a good few goes before you were happy with your performance? Was there a song that you had to record over and over again, or was it pretty much one take and everything was nailed?
No, it basically the studio. I've got to say, I booked the studio for 5 days, but I finished in 3. Basically, the 4th day was just sort of like getting all the tracks. But I've got to say, doing this album, it really took it out of me, because it was the weather was quite warm anyway. And also as well, what he wanted to do, I wanted to give it a live feel. So all those sort of like tracks that you hear on the album are just full takes. They're just one takes basically. There's no points where we stopped and dropped in anywhere. If I cocked up or I dropped a stick, we just stopped and went back to the start and started again. What I actually did in the end was I recorded every track 3 times. There was one track, Death's Toll, that I did in one take.
Okay.
And then basically the guy in the studio said that's fine, but I said to him, no, I want to do another 2 just in case. So, but I sent over 3 versions of the drums for each track basically.
Okay.
But like I say, it took me.
Is that something that you've always done, do you think, or is this something you want to be really proud of this when you're going to do it?
No. What? With other albums, I'll probably say the hardest one I ever did. In fact, the hardest album I ever did was Victory. That one. What happened with that one was we rehearsed. We rehearsed for a full week before, I believe, if I remember. Then we went to I can't remember where we went. Somewhere in Sheffield, and it's a really nice studio that Colin Richardson wanted to use just for the drums. And so I set all the drums up, started rehearsing, started practicing, recording, and my legs went. basically just effectively just pulled, not so much pulled the muscle, but just strained my leg. And so what we had to do was I literally had to play each track until I couldn't play anymore, or it just stopped.
Wow.
And then we had to drop in, and then, you know, because at that time you had this sort of like ramping. It was this system where it ramped in or whatever. And that was the hardest album I think I ever did. So that was all done in sections where I just literally drummed until I broke down effectively.
Yeah.
And then started again. I mean, with other albums, I mean, it's just a case of, you know, I mean, you can sort of like record, you know, you can record 3 versions of it, and then because it's all computerized now, you can just go in and you can cut and copy the best bits, can't you? So so and even change bits. I mean, but with Death's Toll, the only bit that we edited was in the start of Course Vision, where you'd have to listen to it, but there's basically just a couple of little drum rolls, you know, just sort of like, you know, like two sections of drum rolls. They were originally done on the toms, and when I listened back to them, I thought, I don't like that, and I came up here and did it on the snare, and sort of like, and so effectively Gord just changed the toms to snares, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm really proud of it. I mean, you know, it's we did it to a click track, but it's not. It weaves and bobs to the, you know, so it's not 100%, you know, sort of like, you know, gives and takes. Mick just sort of like, when he recorded his bit, he just said to Kieran, get rid of the click track and just play to the drums basically. So realistically, I'd say I was probably the one album that I'm really, really proud of.
Good.
Because each track was just one take. Like I say, if I dropped a stick or I did anything wrong, we just stopped and started again. You know, that was it. I mean, it killed me. I was at the fucking end of the day. I was absolutely angry, but
would you do it all again for album number 2?
Yeah. It'd be exactly the same. Yeah, it'd be exactly the same. Yeah. So, but hopefully anyway. So we'll see.
Cool. But with Kieran, we've hardly talked about Kieran. He'll be like, when are you going to talk about me? With Kieran being the vocalist of the band, then does he write all the lyrics, or do all members contribute to the lyrics? And what would some of the lyrical themes be for the album?
No, basically everybody just. I mean, with me and Mick, it was like, Mick said to me, I'm not giving you any drum ideas, you know, I'm doing guitars. And it was the same with Lee, and it was the same with Kieran as well. You know, you're the vocalist, you write the lyrics, so you know, they're all his baby. I think a lot of them, I mean, I'm not really the person to sort of you know, talk to about it really. I mean, you really need to speak to him. But I think it's a lot of sort of like psychological, mental, you know, about people's mental states and all that kind of stuff, which, to be honest, is really, really good, because it's, you know, I mean, it's
not blood and guts like death metal.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's a bit more sort of like, you know, he's gone into it, and he's thought of the theme, and you know, he's gone in, you know, he's gone into
it's a message.
Yeah. I think it's really, really good. I mean, like Kieran, you know, I mean, Kieran was always surprised, you know, why. I think Kieran's from that generation where if you're going to join a band, you have to do a sort of like, you know, you have to go and do a sort of like go and play the band to see if you're any good. But it was just a case of, I knew him from Ashen Crown, so I knew he was a decent vocalist. So it wasn't a case that he had to do an audition or anything. It was like, do you want to be in the band? Yeah, I'll be in it. And that was it. Sort of, you know,
was it over a beer, funnily enough?
Yeah, he was. You know, I mean, Kieran's great. He's great. He's a great musician. He's really sort of like, it's really interesting, like listening to him sometimes, because he gets into all the theory behind vocals and all that.
He's a very intelligent guy.
He just shacks. To me, it's like, you know, but there again, I mean, it's like with the drums. It's sort of like, things that people do on drums. I don't, but I just hit things. But, people, I don't know, there's things that you can do on them that are sort of like, that you can.
I mean, I've got a wee soft spot for him, as you can see behind me.
He's a good lad, he's a good lad.
He is, and lyrics is definitely an art form. But what I'm taking from what you've said is like you guys have been writing for a year, say, and Kieran's just sat about and done hee haw, and then two weeks before you meant to go into the studio, he's like, "Oh, I better write some lyrics to this."
Honestly, Ricky, the night before. Here's the night before.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, we were sort of like, we need the album next week, and he goes, "Well, I'm going to be starting the lyrics in about 4 days."
I was only kidding on as well. It's all fact, is it? Jesus.
Yeah. But no, I mean, basically the way it worked was that we sort of like had a couple of folders on the computers, Dropbox or Drive or whatever, and me and Mick and Lee would work on our basic ideas. Then once we were up with the basic ideas, then we moved them into the next folder, which then Lee and Kieran could work from basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Lee comes up with an idea, then he just puts it into the it's the same with the second album. We've got a basic album idea folder, and then once we've structured them, then they'll move into the next one, really. But realistically, there's no need for Kieran to. He listens to the basic ideas to hear what they are, but until they're final songs, there's no need for him, because he'd start working on lyrics for them and then have to chop and change them. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting because I have conversations with a number of bands, and vocalists could be like, "Yeah, I've got 15 lyrics written already, for songs, but the music hasn't been written yet, but he's already got 15 songs." That was Quando from Brainbath up here. But a lot of vocalists wait until the song's finished, and then they get their finger out the backside,
I mean, realistically, I wouldn't even know the first thing about writing
absolutely
a song lyric. Like it's not my thing. I mean, my ears are toned to fitting drum patterns to, So I mean, it's a case as well. I mean, apart from it, if it's an intro, I work on intros and stuff like that. But I don't really work on drum patterns for whole songs, because I prefer to listen to a guitar track or guitar idea or bass idea, and then fit the drums to it, and then obviously we work. I mean, so I know a few of the lads who sort of like work out whole songs on the drums, and I just think, well, yeah, but it's not something I could do. I do intros, I mean, obviously, in a way, I suppose I'm a little bit renowned for the drum intro, aren't I? That drum,
yes,
that's all like drum intro.
Played it many a time.
Yeah. But I mean, like songs like, songs like Spearhead, that was recorded. That idea came from the drums, but it's it's just one of those things, isn't it? But it's I think each band works to their own strengths, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they all have their own ways to do things. But
well, I've heard you say your second album a couple of times, and I'm very pleased to hear it. And I'm hoping that some more news will be coming out before the end of the year as to how it's progressing and things like that. But until then, now that the world has opened its doors to playing live again, what have you got in store for us with DeathCollector?
Well, at the moment, we definitely got the Nottingham show.
Yes.
That's in the middle. We hopefully work on something for the day after that. After that, this year, I'm not sure if we'll actually be able to do anything. Realistically, it's just working patterns, really. I mean, Lee's got a really weird job where he only gets sort of like one weekend off a month, sort of thing, So it's a little bit. We've got to work on it, really, because it's sort of at the moment we're trying to fit a sort of like a square peg into a round hole. Do you know what I mean? Because we've got certain days that we've got free, and we're having to sort of like say, well, let's try and get a. But I mean, obviously, promoters have got days they want to do, haven't they? You know, so it's trying to fit it in.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, at the moment is, I think we're going to try and get these couple of gigs this year. If anything else comes in, I don't know, and then we'll start afresh next year and see, you know, see what happens basically. But we're definitely doing the Nottingham show. We're able to get the show the day after, and then like I say, we're just going to see where we come.
So what we get. So the phone was cutting out a wee bit. So what date is the Nottingham gig, and where's it getting played?
It's at the Chameleon. I've got a feeling. Is it? Not. It might be the. Is it the? Oh God, 15th or the 19th? If you go on to the, I don't get involved. I
just love putting you in the spot there.
I'm just like candidate. That's all I am. You know, mate. I just smile at people and sort of like, you know, let them touch the ring of chaos. You know what I mean?
So yeah, talking about the Nottingham gig then. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually got Kieran's actually part of my team. I do I've got a Moshville Oktoberfest, so I've got a gig in October for my 50th, I might add. I know I don't look it younger before you say anything. But yeah, we're looking to do like stuff annually up here in Glasgow. So
I'd love to get in. I mean, honestly, I'd love to get back up in Scotland anyway, because I mean, part of my family come from Edinburgh anyway, like, so I always do like getting up that way, part of the world, like, so, but
yeah, no, listen, if I had my way, it would be 9 death metal bands, but unfortunately I'm part of a group, so it's catering for all tastes, but I'll work on it.
Yeah, that's it. No, every like the same thing, do they? But no, we'll definitely be up in, we definitely sort of like want to get up to Scotland, do a couple of shows up there. And then the main other one we want to do is get over to Ireland as well, you know, and get there as well. Because
for Mick,
I
interviewed him last year. He's a really cool guy. He's a nice guy. I interviewed him last year.
Yeah, but we'll get there. It's just a case of with family and work commitments. It's sort of it's like with anybody, isn't it? You know, it's not a full-time band. You know, we work it around other stuff, really. So
well, just leave your job and get divorced, and then you can tour.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
But talking about the gig in Nottingham, then you've got a 10-song set list. What song of the set list are you looking forward to playing the most? What's your favourite?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I've got two that I really like. I mean, Death's Toll. That's a real sort of like banger. That one is. You know, it's just you know, straight in there. And Taste of Icor as well. I'm enjoying to that. But the one that I've noticed that a lot of people are really going on saying about it's their favourite, you know, their favourite song off the album. Of course, Vision as well, which
interesting.
For me, that's you know, that's not my. I've always said to the lads, it's not my favourite track, but I could understand how it could end up being a good live track, you know. But there's a lot of people, you know, that are really up for that, you know, really into that track, which is good. Yeah.
Well, you won't know until you get out there and do it, so we'll go out there and do it.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. That's it. We'll be there, but it's just a case of bearing with us, really. So
I've got a couple of more questions, but then I've kind of opened up things to a couple of chats that I'm in. So it's a wee bit open-ended to the last few questions, but a couple more for you. You've been signed to the label Prosthetic Records for a while now. Well, I don't know if it's a year or 6 months or whatever like that. But how did that come about? How's the relationship been so far, and what do you hope Prosthetic Records will bring to DeathCollector?
I mean, realistically, yeah. I mean, after we released the 3-track EP, we sort of like put it out there that you know, well, would anybody be interested in releasing an album And again, like someone I can't remember her name's Death Metal Mum over in Denmark. I can't remember what she sort of like, you know, she's got some sort of web, you know, the sort of like web thing that she does, or she writes for certain people. But
Yeah.
she sort of like tagged us with prosthetic records in TikTok or something like that, or you know, Twitter. And they got in touch with us and sort of like offered
Wow.
us, you know, if we were interested anyway. We had a bit of a meeting with you know, one of the lads from Prosthetic, and then we decided, you know, what we were going to do. And it really, I mean, it was over, and it was the chat went like, you know, well, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? Because the hard sums of it are, we either pay to do an album ourselves or get somebody else to do it. You know, and I mean, to be honest, I'd rather use somebody else. I know it sounds harsh, but I mean, you know, I mean that's the truth, really. You know, if you can get somebody else to pay for it, then you know. But I mean, to be honest, Prosthetic have been really, really good. You know, I mean, they've you know, they've publicised the album. You know, they've done. You know, they've the pre-sales went well. You know, I mean, you know, with the videos, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, with the second album, I hope it'd be more of the same, really. But obviously, a little bit of a bigger band for them to work with. I mean, because realistically, I mean, and truthfully, I mean, yeah, I mean, they've got a band that's got a 3-track EP out. That one of the drummer used to be in Bolt Thrower 24 years ago. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you know, I mean, really, I mean,
Your legend lives
like,
on.
you know, I mean, yeah, a lot of people might go, yeah, that's brilliant, but realistically, from a sales point of view, you know, I mean, it's sort of,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we're a new band, really. So I mean, you know, they've got to build it up, haven't we? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to say, you know, band around the term supergroup and all that, you know, like Zealot Cult, Ashen Crown, and ex-Bolt Thrower or ex-Memoriam. But I mean, realistically, I think people are a bit more sensible than that now, aren't they? You know, I mean, they're going to go, yeah, Andy Whale was in Bolt Thrower, but that doesn't mean a lot, really. You know, let's wait and listen to what they are. You know, because I mean, you know, I mean, and I think people are sensible enough to do that now, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, they listen to they listen to what's happening first. You know, it's not just a case of let's get all excited because, you know, Bolt Thrower are coming back in, another guy's through another person that used to be in it. It isn't happening, do you know what I mean? You know, I moved on from Bolt Thrower years ago when I left them, and you know, I've wanted to strive to do my own stuff, and DeathCollector in a way is what I strive to do. Do you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. But I think Prosthetic are releasing it in CD and vinyl, aren't they? I know that you're a member of the old school, and I wondered if you're going to do is there an opportunity for like a limited run of doing a cassette or anything like that for that?
No, I mean, if it was a small run, I mean, really, though, I mean, it was just a case of, let's see what happens with the album and the CD first. You know, I mean, my priority was it coming out on vinyl. You know, because I mean, I don't think I've had an album that's not come out on vinyl. You know, so you know, so that was a priority. But I know that cassettes are, you know, they're in some way coming back a little bit, aren't they?
I mean, cassettes and vinyl are outselling CDs. You know,
yeah,
it's crazy.
That's it, probably. Yeah, probably they're probably just as good. But I don't know. I mean, let's wait and see. It's something to. I mean, at the moment, the album's been out a month, hasn't it? So I think it's a case of sitting back and seeing what happens. Maybe in a month or two, having a chat with Prosthetic, see what's happening and how things went, and then take it from there. Really.
Yeah, cool. Listen, thank you very much for your time, Andy. I've got one more question, but then I've got a few more, I'm afraid. Are you okay with time?
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Have you got enough? Have you got another can of beer?
I have, but do you know what? I'm a sipper because this is quite strong. So I'm enjoying sort of like I'll have the record player fired up and go through a catalog of records.
Well, actually, one of the questions is related to punk, but I'll keep that just now. But the last question I always ask my interviews is the instruments that they used for the recording of the album. So this might actually trigger another 40-minute conversation with yourself, because you're going to tell me the drums that you used for the recording of the album.
Right. I mean, well, the drum kit is a Mapex Meridian series, just a standard drum kit basically. I think it was a 10-12. I'm not sure if they used the 14-inch or the 16-inch floor tom, can't remember. I might have used the 14-inch one for the recording. I used a Mapex snare, obviously with a trigger on it as well, because obviously so Gord could do any bits and pieces you need to do.
Did you change the snare sound from Time's Up to the album, or did you keep the same snare sound?
No, right. What it is, the Time's Up was all done on an E kit.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so it was all. I don't know what like most people use Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer. So I don't know which one Gord used. But now, so basically, it was all. It was live snare sound, and Gord just tweaked it basically, doing what he does. But I mean, like I say, so the 14-inch snare, I don't use that anymore now. I've gone down to the old Pearl 13-inch snare, one of the brass ones, which I actually used. The reason I've gone back to that is I used the 13-inch brass piccolo on the last two Bolt Thrower albums, and I really like that sound, especially on Victory. The snare sounds, I love that snare sound. So I managed to pick up one of those, exactly the same model, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 14-inch snare, 22 by a 20-inch bass drum, which basically it's a slightly deeper bass drum, it's like slightly deeper. And then obviously cymbals, I just used minor sort of custom classics. They're sort of like they're decent enough cymbals. I wanted to give it they're quite lively, so I wanted to give it that sort of like lively, sort of like old punk, loud sound.
Yeah.
Obviously, what is it? I used 14-inch hi-hats. I've got 18-inch crash, 19-inch crash, 20-inch big bell as well. Got nice. The big bell, and then just used I think a 10-inch splash or something like that. Oh, and 16-inch China as well. I think the 16-inch China is probably one of the smaller ones, smaller cymbals that I use. And then obviously use the sets of the Kawasaki Copito.
Yeah.
Double pedals, you use those as well, which was the first time I'd used those. So
how was the feel for them? How did you like them?
Oh, they're brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'd always been I'd always used the Tama Speed Cobra.
Yeah.
And I think they're brilliant pedals. But the Kawasaki Copito ones are absolute next level. They're really, really, really good pedals. So,
good.
Excellent. But yeah, and that was basically it, really. And then obviously just triggered the bass drum as well. So just that was just so in case Gord wanted to chop and change things, really, which I don't think he really did much with them. But yeah, and that was it, I'd say.
What about drumsticks? What weight of drumsticks do you use?
Yeah, obviously I use a sort of a 7AX. The lads at London Drumstick Company make them for me. They're nice. Quite a thin, like jazzy stick, really. So yeah, many years ago, I used to use the big 2Bs.
Yeah.
When I was in Bolt Thrower days, but nowadays I like something a bit lighter. Just sort of like twiddling around with it. So, but yeah, so.
At the end of the day, though, would you like a drum kit like the size of Nickel McBrain's, or are you quite happy with your kit?
No, I much prefer the little small kits now. Yeah. I like compact stuff. gone are the days where, I mean, like, you know, like in the bolt throw days when I had sort of like 3 rack toms and 24-inch bass drums and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nah, I'd stick me in front of a nice little five-piece kit and I'm happy.
It's more for you to
So,
carry in for the gig now, isn't it? If you got that.
that's it, yeah, God, yeah.
Yeah,
Too much on the back, but no, I mean, to be honest, 5-piece kit does me now. I'm sort of like, you know, I've played a couple that have been a bit weird, like some of the little, you know, these little jazzy kits people seem to use. They're a bit weird, but I mean, at the end of the day, kit's kit. I've always just been used to sort of like, I mean, all the way through my playing career, I've very rarely played on my own kit, really. So I'm used to just sitting in front of what I've got in front of me and just having to get used to it. So it is what it is. You just don't have time. That's the trouble. Don't have time to chop and change things. So.
It's always the enemy, isn't it? Always the enemy.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure. I do have a lot of time for DeathCollector. I've got a lot of time for Lee, Kieran, Mick, and of course your good self. It's been an absolute honour talking to you. But I am a member of a few groups, and I hope you don't mind. But I've kind of opened yourself up to them and letting them ask a few questions for you. And I said I would give them a wee shout out. So it's a wee bit, one or two going back in time, but one or two about the present day. But I've got a question from Al from Coffin Mulch, based up here just outside of Glasgow. Bolt Thrower came from the anarcho-punk scene. So did that spirit and mentality exist when Bolt Thrower became a metal band? And do you think it still does now?
Basically, yeah. Bolt Thrower. I mean, I can only speak to myself. I mean, obviously, I wasn't in the band for 20 years until they sort of like split up. But I think Bolt Thrower always did have that sort of like punk mentality. And to be honest, I even with myself as well, I've still got that sort of, you know, that mentality as well. You know, I mean, I've always tried to do, you know. I've always tried to be honest about things, you know. I've always tried to be honest about the bands that I'm in, you know, and sort of like I think people are sort of willing to, you know, willing to listen to that. You know, when you try and bullshit people know you're bullshitting down an age. You know what I mean? I don't like swearing, but I've always had that sort of like punk mentality. You know, it's sort of like I try and keep. You know, I've always tried to keep T-shirts down to decent price for people, you know, that kind of thing, and sort of it's always. I mean, realistically, although I'm 58 now, I'm still that sort of like, in one way, I'm still that sort of like angry 18 to 20-year-old lad that went to see Steve Ignorant, you know, and people like that.
Yeah,
you know, the people like him are probably to blame. I'm a grumpy old man that questions everything, basically. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, we myself and I, you know, I can only speak for myself really, but we came from that sort of like hardcore thing, and yeah, even when I was in the band, we turned over to bigger things, you know. We did big. I mean, even when I was in the band, we did big tours. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you know, obviously they got bigger when I left. But they still had that sort of like same, you know, punk mentality really. And I think for me personally, go to the grave with me. Do you know what I mean? It's just what you grow up as, you know. So what's sort of like, you know. So yeah, I think I'll always be that punk. I mean, that's why DeathCollector has got all the combinations of, you know, punk, hardcore, you know, death metal. It is what it is. It's what I've always, you know, it's what I've always wanted to do. It's what I've always strived to do. You know, I might not go out there protesting against things, but I still disagree with a lot, you know, of this country and world, really.
Is that why you get? Is that why you go off Facebook, because you're banned when you say things?
No, I don't know. Do you know what? The thing is, my argument is, I tend to sort of like, I tend to just stay off Facebook now, because as much as I can, and social media, because in one way, it's really easy to, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you say. If you're trying to be honest, like I say, I've always tried to be honest with myself. If I disagree with something, I'll disagree with it,
Yeah.
and sometimes people don't agree with it, and so nowadays I just think, you know what, it's easier just to try and stay off it as much as possible,
Yeah.
Facebook, basically, what you've had for tea, photos of your dogs, that's it. That's what you do. Nothing else.
Very true. Very true. I'm sick of it,
But yeah, I mean, to put a final thing, I think I'll end up being, I will die still being that Andy Whale who was that hardcore band in, that hardcore lad in Urban Chaos in 1980 when I started playing in bands. It's sort of, I'll always be, although I don't outwardly say it, I'll always be against racism and all that, that kind
Absolutely.
of side of things, and it's something you've got to do, and it's something I've found over the years that talking out about it is I mean, there's that many people that just sort of like jump on the bandwagon and stick the boots in. It's social media.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a view, and everybody feels that their view is right. So you know what I mean? I think it's easy just to have my own views away from social media.
That's it.
So,
That's it. But going on to the second love that I have, I forgot to ask this question. The second love, I have my death metal, but I also like my dark ambient. So what's happening with Crossed Paths?
yeah.
Because I've listened to the 4 a.m. sessions, and especially like the last track, Remorse. So
yeah. Well, that's me sort of like. Well, the thing was, I mean, with that cross path, the reason it's called 4 a.m. session is because I from time to time I have trouble with my sleep pattern, so I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep. So I thought, well, what should I do? And then going back to Memoriam days, I always used to like working on little sound bites and little samples that I used to stick in between songs. Some worked, some didn't, But I just got a taste for it and got, and I always like doing. I always like ambient music as well. I love, bands like Portishead and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I like loads of music really. I mean, death metal's just one of them. I like northern soul music. I love punk music. I just like music really. It's really really good. But so I'm there sort of like 4 a.m. with a cup of tea. What am I going to do? Well, I'll go in the back room. Well, I can't play any drums, so I just started making them up. And then it was just for me really. And then Jason, who had been helping us out with sort of like DeathCollector, but realistically was too busy. He sort of like said, well, let's have a listen to them. And I passed them to him. He said, you know what? He said, we can work on them and we can make something out of them. And I think they were a bit flung together, but they worked quite well. I mean, they were never really supposed to be released.
Yeah.
But then obviously one night I was probably a bit pissed off, a bit drunk.
I don't believe that for a second.
No, that's it. No. But I sent him over to Stian over at Edge Circle, and he's really into that stuff. He's really really into it, and he goes, "Oh, do you know what? I really really like that." And he said, "I'd like to release it." But anyway, so I've worked on another 4 or 5 tracks, 4 of them. Jason has had for about 6 months now, but he's just really, really busy with other stuff as well. So he's just working on them at the moment. So there will be more. There'll probably be another EP coming out, another 4 tracks minimum. But they're a lot more structured this time, and I've learned sort of like what I'm doing as well, a bit more as well. So they're a lot different this time, But realistically, I have a struggle as well, because the only time I can actually I've got like my computer, and I've got me, the keyboard and all that kind of stuff. But the only time I can work on that sort of stuff is when I've got problems in a way, or I'm really cheesed off about things. So if I sit down in front of my keyboard now and press a button, it'll just sound absolute codswallop. But if it's the middle of the night and I'm really, really pissed off or really annoyed about something, or something sad, I'll knock out a tune in like 15, 20 minutes. And so I don't try and push it. It's just like I just work on them when I feel I need to work. They're just emotions that come out of me. That's what they are. Really.
No, like I say, I do love my dark ambient, and if you do have problems sleeping, there's a brilliant record label called Cryo Chamber, and then on YouTube they have a 24/7 live stream. That's all the sleeping music you need. Absolutely brilliant. But sorry.
And that I was going to say, and that's it really. I mean, Crosspath is my sort of like channeling, the way for me to channel all the things that have bad things have happened to me, really, or and I just channel them into that. But I have to be in the wrong, but I like it. I just like doing it. It's different. Do you know what I mean? It's different.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for it. But I've got a question from Callum from Tyrannus. He said, it would be cool if you can talk about the positive changes that you've seen in the UK scene since you came up in the 80s.
Well, it's a hard one, really, because back in the 80s, there was a hell of a lot less bands around. So, it was sort of like, and I think really, it was just a case of John Peel getting behind a lot of the bands that helped the whole thing really start. And then, obviously labels like Nuclear Blast and Earache and Piecemeal, it really, really sort of like got it all running. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was absolutely brilliant. It was great because, people bought your records as well. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't any digital downloads. People went out and bought records. They bought CDs, cassettes, and it was great. And realistically as well, if you put you released an album, we released an album in November or whatever, and then we'd book a tour for the February, and the shows are absolutely amazing. Do you know what I mean? They're all packed, sold out. Really, really great crowds. But then obviously, I decided to knock it on the head. Coming back into the 80s, what I'd say is, in one way, the one positive is the fact that, there's a lot more bands around now as well.
Yes.
There's a lot more, I'd say there's a lot more, like musicians that are there's a lot of musicians that are bloody amazing, so things have come on technically a lot as well. I wouldn't say that, even though I like listening to it, I wouldn't say it's my thing. I like their sort of like, has been branded around the last few days. I like the meat and potato death metal stuff. Do you know what I mean? Say a coin of praise. But it's good that the positives are that there's a good scene around, and there's people putting on stuff for people. Do you know what I mean? Where years ago, there was sort of like, in Birmingham, there was Daz Russell, and that was it really. You did your shows, and that was it. But there's a lot of people putting stuff on. There's a lot of festivals on for people, which is great if you can get onto that, onto that scene.
Yeah.
But there again, the negative side of that is as well, it's all a bit of a production line as well, isn't it? Because I've done some of the bigger festivals in the world really. And it's just realistically, sometimes I've sat there and thought, do you know what? I really think like some of these festivals, if they could get away with just having the big headliners and nobody else, it'd be brilliant. They only, they realistically need everybody else to get people to go there, don't they?
Yeah.
But so there's positives and negatives, but there's a great, there's a great sort of, it's great networking scene around now as well. With all social media. you know, I mean, that's got its upside and its downside as well, you know. But I mean, on the whole, it's a great way for people to get their band name out there, you know. I mean, with Bloodstock as well, you know, the way they do all these sort of like, you know, these battle of the band things. I know they're not called that. But I mean, that's a great thing for small bands to get onto that festival as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of positives, you know. I mean, it's the one negative I would say is the fact that the bigger labels not interested in little bands. Do you know what I mean? You've got to, you know, they want a band that's ready to make money, really. Do you know what I mean? They're not, you know. Whereas with us, we did one Peel session. You know, everybody went, yeah, that's brilliant. We were allowed to sort of like learn our trade in a way over 3 or 4 albums. You know, I mean, we both through. You could see In Battle, and then you could see Realm of Chaos, and you could see the band maturing as a band, and the people in it maturing as musicians as well. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, but nowadays, I don't think you'd be allowed to do that, would you? You know, they want, you know, it's all about that. You know, they want bands. So although I don't want to be positive, and I want to be positive and negative at the same time. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, but I mean, it's a great time for bands to be around now. But the only trouble is, the one thing I would say is just bloody hard to make you know, to make it without. I won't say make it money, because I mean, in our niche environment, I mean, you know, you're not really gonna.
Have you made any money from Spotify yet with your 0.0000012 per stream yet?
You know what? I've kept out of it. It's like with Bandcamp as well, like, you know, because we've got the EP. And I think we were on Disco. Was it Distro Kid or something? Yeah. And we know in the EP, I think we managed to buy. A curry for 3 of us out of that one night. Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, you know, but I mean, I think it's a great time to be in a band, but it's sort of like different to what it was back in the 80s, because it was just, you know, I mean, it was just so.
Do you know, see in Glasgow on a Saturday night, you can go to 4 gigs on a Saturday night at 4 different venues. Every band and their granny are now playing gigs, and I think COVID had a lot to play with that, and I think COVID had to play a lot in the extreme metal scene, because I don't think it's been as big as it is just now, whether it's deathcore or slam or brutal death metal, whatever like that. But yeah, I think it's absolutely crazy just now.
Everybody's playing catch up, basically, aren't they? You know, everybody's playing catch up. Everybody wants to, and quite rightly, everybody wants to go out there. Push their own bands, really, but unfortunately, like you say, nowadays you can sort of like put a, you know, we want to, like, say for instance in September we were discussing places to play, and sort of like we were saying, well, Nottingham, why don't we just jump on the motorway, go up to Glasgow, bloody over in Edinburgh, you've got the bloody Lords of the Land thing, haven't you? Do you know
That's right.
So yeah, so, and I imagine there's probably somewhere else, there's something else, isn't there? You know, whereas in...
I mean, I've got my festival on October the 7th, and within a week and a half, a gig, Veda and Vomitory are coming over on the 6th, and you've got Tim Ripper Owens coming over on the 8th. I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know...
And people, the trouble is as well, at the moment, the way the world is as well, people are having to juggle the finances, aren't they? And you're having to think, well, which one do I want to go to? You know, so it's tough. It's a hard one, really. But I mean, you just got to be positive and just keep going, haven't you? Really, and then you know, if things work, they work. If they don't, they don't. That's the way it is. But
but I've got a question from your friend Leanne Evans of Metal Temple. Right, she says that she knows that you're not a fan of swearing. Including this is a no swearing shirt note that she received. So she said she's intrigued to know, like, what you scream when you tread on Lego, or do you just blast beat his way through the paint on the nearest surface?
Right, my argument is, and I do swear occasionally, but when it's needed, like when you stand on Lego. But my argument is, and it's always been, that there's you know, there's the English language has enough words to be able to use to not have to swear all the time. So it's, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you don't, you know, it's not. It's just one of them things. I do swear, but when, you know, when I need to, really. But so, and I know what Leanne's like as well. What should be, yeah, what's like? So I just thought it'd be quite humorous to send her that little note extra. But yeah, my argument is there's enough words in the English language, and I say this to my lads as well when about once or twice a week when they're effing and jetting at me. You know, that's a lot of teenage images. And I always say that there's enough words in the English language to not have to swear, and it's true. You know what I mean? It's true.
I hate see you next Tuesday, and it's a word that I never use.
That's it.
Yeah. I've got a question from Rich from Malediction. Now that's a blast from the past, and it's good to see that Malediction are back. Rich Mumford, but he's got a very simple question for you. He's let you off lately. Who's the best band that you've ever played on the same bill with, and why?
Oh God. Wow, I don't. Oh God, I don't know.
Maybe even before you started playing, like what was the band that you saw live saying I have to play drums or I have to do this?
You know what? One of the greatest shows I went to. God, when was that? You're probably looking at sometime in 1981, which would have been the Dead Kennedys with the original lineup.
Yeah.
And they played with I think they played, I can't remember what it's called. It's somewhere in Mosley anyway. And it's sort of like they played with Drongos in Europe. That was an amazing show. I'm just trying to think who I played with over the years. My God, because I've probably played with quite a lot.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a hard one really, because man, it's sort of like watching, but you very rarely get to watch. I mean,
is there a band like outside of death metal, like maybe a band like Meshuggah or something like that, or Devin Townsend, and you're just blown away?
Yeah, do you know what the one guy I do well. I used to go and see quite a lot when he first started. I hate the Stone Roses, but I love Ian Brown. And the reason why, and I saw him, you know, like with the first couple of albums, probably saw him about 3 or 4 times. First time I saw him was in Leicester Uni, you know, where I suppose where they would have stuck, where they stick sort of like, you know, the festival on. But I always enjoy that. But the other band that I saw as well, which I've got to say, really, really good. The Verve as well, you know, just as they were hitting, you know, as that the album came out, you know, sort of like they were going to get big with that. I saw them; they were absolutely amazing. But I mean, realistically, going back to sort of like punk bands, that kind of thing. I suppose you're looking at back in the day. You know, you're looking at bands like, you know, like when I first saw Discharge, that kind of thing. You know, because they were like totally different to what was going on in the whole punk scene, really.
Exploited.
You know, but I mean, I also as well. I mean, one of the bands that I saw that were like really, really good show as well would have been. I think that was about 91, which would have been Nirvana as well. You know, just before the what was it? The Nevermind album come out.
Yeah.
You know, so they still would have been doing Bleach, wouldn't they, or something like that? I think I saw them at the Beer Keller. I think it was with L7. That was.
I remember that now.
That was a good band. I mean, the trouble is, I've seen. It's funny really, because I went to see. I was talking to Mick the other. I went to see Judas Priest in 1991 at the Aston Villa Leisure Centre when they were doing the Painkiller tour. And Mick said to me, he said, "Well, did you see Annihilator?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, Mick." And then somebody came on and said, Yeah, Annihilator supported them on that. And I was like, I can't remember. But I mean, so were Annihilator good? I don't know. But I mean, I'll tell you what, right? Probably, right. I'll say, like, back to answering Rich's question. 1984, Marquee, Slayer.
Wow.
Me and Carl, I'll tell you, there's 2 funny stories. Carl won't mind me saying these because it is quite funny. And we always talk about it. I haven't seen it for ages, but we had tickets, right? We had tickets going to see him at the Marquee. They were playing, we were supporting Ashen Crown. Marquee, first tour in the UK. Basically, what happened is we literally just got I think they must have been basically just letting people in and letting people pay. We were probably the last couple of people that actually got into the venue before they sort of like said it's full, and there were still people outside with tickets.
Yeah.
But anyway, so first Slayer, I mean that would have been God 84. What Show No Mercy or something like that. That's it. Absolutely amazing. I remember Ashen Crown came on. Would have been their big break sort of thing. And the bass player, who's is it Venom now, isn't it? Is it Venom or Venom Inc? I can't remember.
Venom Inc.
Yeah, Venom Inc. And I think it was him anyway. And his bass conked out halfway through the show. And I don't think Slayer had, I don't know what it was, but nobody had borrowed him another bass head. So he was like bashing up his bass sort of thing. And I thought that's the best thing I ever saw. It was, I actually say I actually bought the album, the Ashen Crown album, because of him smashing his bass up. But I mean, the Slayer gig was absolutely immense.
Yeah.
Move on a little bit. I think it was 1988. We went to see Slayer at the Birmingham Odeon. Who supported them, don't know. Somebody may be able to tell me. But anyway, so Slayer come on. Crowd goes mad. And me and Carl jump on the stage to stage dive. These bouncers come flying over. I just about managed to jump back in. Carl got collared and kicked, like taken out. In them days, it was like you were thrown out the side door, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then so he had to go back. He had to go round the front. And obviously the doors were locked, weren't they, in them days? So it was literally banging the door in to try and get back in. But yeah, sort of like that. But yeah, I mean,
Well, I hope you let him know that was the best band performance you've ever seen in your life, and he missed it.
Yeah, there you go. And I'd say the only other one was probably the other one. I mean, probably say loads. Oh God, what was that? Celtic Frost.
Yeah.
Celtic Frost at the Birmingham Powerhouse. That was really, really good as well. They were an amazing band.
I think they're touring again, aren't they? I think they're playing. I'm sure Celtic Frost are touring.
Yeah.
But I can't remember.
The only trouble is with me now is I go to see bands and I get moaned at like brother about it. It's just sort of like I just like to stand there and watch it. I like to watch the musicians.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not the same as what it used to be, really. But I mean, back in the day, I mean, I saw so many. Oh, that was another one was another show, Big Waffling. I can't remember where it was in London. Voivod, Possessed, English Dogs. That was a good show as well.
Wow.
That was a cracking show.
Going to see Possessed when they come back in a month or so? Are you going to see Possessed, yeah?
I don't know. I have to think about it. But like I say, I mean, I'll see what it. But yeah, that was a cracking show. That was.
Yeah.
But there was some. I mean, but back in the day, years ago, there's just too many bands that were just really, really good. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Do you know something? I thought that was a really simple question, but you've gave me the Verve, Dead Kennedys, Stone Roses, Slayer.
No, Ian Brown, don't talk about the Stone Roses. Can't stand
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I've got 2 questions left for you. Thanks very much. So this is from Kendall from Brainbath. It's an old school death metal band here in Glasgow. So when you made the initial demos and early records with Bolt Roar, did you all immediately recognise you were sitting on something that was special that people would love, or was it completely organic and the response was unexpected?
Well, I think with I mean, like obviously we did the two demos down at Rich Bitch Studios. Yeah. Effectively what they used to do there was they'd have like this special offer where you could do them sort of like from, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night to like 4 or 5 in the morning sort of thing. Yeah, sort of like to get them half price or whatever. But I mean realistically, as soon as we I don't want to sound a bit pompous or big-headed or anything, but with the tape trading, you could tell that there was a lot of interest. And then what happened was, obviously, when we released the In Battle There Is No Law, obviously bands like Heresy and sort of like, Heresy, I think Napalm were a little bit later, Extreme Noise Terror, Electro Hippies were all starting to do the sort of like Peel sessions. So effective, I mean, really, what I did was I sent a copy of the tape to John Peel and Tommy Vance at the same time, because obviously he was playing, sort of like Venom and Metallica. I think we got a letter back. Shame I didn't keep it, actually. We got a letter from Tommy Vance going, thanks, lads, but it's not our stuff. You know, be one for the sort of like, And then John Peel, in fact, John Walters, his producer, just got in touch with us and sort of like said, oh, John really likes the demo, and he wants you to come in and do a sort of, where I think he said something like, he'd like to know if you'd like to do a session for him, and sort of like, yeah. It's like a lot of the bands around then. I mean, I know it sounds a bit knobby, that sort of thing, like, but you had Napalm, you had Carcass. I mean, there was just a little bit of a buzz. There was a buzz that built up around it. I mean, it's sort of like, we used to people tape trading, get a lot of letters from people. So, I mean, but realistically, I mean, it was in them days. It had to be organic because everything was a lot slower, wasn't it?
Right.
It was sort of like people wrote to each other, they sent stuff, and it took a lot of time.
I hope you weren't in charge of the letters, because you'd have got a sore wrist, the amount of letters that you'd have had.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, I remember, I'll tell you a story though. I mean, when we did the first Peel session, and John Peel read out my address in Birmingham, which it was the contact address, that's what it was. Well, the thing was, we didn't realise, you see, so we didn't realise about a week later, maybe 3-4 days later, the postman knocked on the door with this, like, literally, this pile of letters, and then the next day with another pile of letters. And I thought, I don't know what to say. So, like, it's interesting, actually, because that sort of like, that where I used to live, it got knocked down, but the address is still on the first album. And I still wonder if there's a few letters between the owners, sort of like, never going to get rid of these. But see, I mean, you could just tell that something was going to happen. But being naive and sort of like, young, sort of like, you just didn't really think about it, did you? You just thought, oh yeah, this is a bit of a laugh, like, sort of like going across to Europe for the first time, going into studios.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a big thing, really, but if it stood back, it was.
It must have been amazing, like way back in the late 80s, early 90s, and you're getting letters from Poland or Japan and Brazil and all the rest of it,
I mean, it's sort of like, it's nice to actually, the fact that people took the time to actually get in touch with you as well. Where nowadays they can just get in touch, they just ping you a message and it's sort of like there in a second, isn't it? But it's just the way of the world, isn't it? But I mean, it was a lot, it's a lot, in a way, it was, looking back on it, it was a lot of fun, really, being involved in all that, and it's a shame that, in a way, that the people in bands now that are starting up, they'll never get that, do you know what I mean? Because it just isn't there anymore, and it's a great, it was a great time for death metal. But there again, I mean, it all got everybody to an extent started believing their own bullshit a little bit, and it all sort of like imploded for a little bit, didn't it? And then it took time to then carry on, didn't it? Yeah.
I hope you enlisted some of the band members to help you with the bloody letters.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think we'll just split it anyway. But I mean, like I say, I mean, in them days, I didn't have a job anyway, so I just used to sit there with a bloody cup of tea and answer them. Do you know what I mean? And
I'm sure it was a beer and not a cup of tea. I'm sure it was a beer.
No, always tea. But
Cool.
Save me stamps. I'll get me stamps there. Save me stamps up, and expect them back so I could use them 3 or 4 times, basically.
That's right. That's right. Thanks, Andy. Like I say, I've just got 2 very quick fire questions. I thoroughly appreciate your time. But Kendall from Brain Bath has been cheeky and he's asked you a very quick second question. Like, what's your opinion on the current death extreme metal scene in the UK, specifically in Scotland? Like, I remember back in the day, you had the only bands that had a chance of making it were Corpse, who were signed to Candlelight Records, and you had In Extremis, but you had Inversus and other bands. But today, you've got Brain Bath, you've got Coffin Mulch, you've got Penny Coffin, you've got Tyrannus, you've got Tim Voss, you've got Finag. I can't remember the scene being so strong in Scotland, but I'm just wondering what you think of the scene at the moment.
I mean, oh God, the scene. I mean, I think the scene all over the UK is just a case of it's just hard. I mean, my opinion is it's just hard for the bands to be able to get out there, really. Because I mean, the big thing with Scotland is it's just the distance, isn't it? To where things happen, London.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for a band starting out now, because realistically, you get any kind of release or wherever, people want you to play down in London, don't they? And it's a struggle for bands to actually get paid enough to actually be able to afford, not have to stick money in their own pockets, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as in bands in Scotland. I mean, I only know what I hear and that kind of thing. But I mean, you've got. I mean, there's a good old scene up in Scotland, though, isn't it? I mean, you've got Glasgow, you've got Edinburgh. I see a lot of shows up in Aberdeen, that kind of way as well. You know what I mean? So
it's incredibly strong at the moment. I can't remember it being so strong. And see gigs in Glasgow. I mean, for example, the vocalist Quando from Brain Bath, he's putting on Dead of Winterfest in January, and it's all like Malediction. It's all everything Crepitation, all UK and Scottish death metal bands in the underground, and he's doing very well with it already.
That's good, isn't it? But I mean, realistically, it's sort of like, it's. Me personally, I always thought Scotland. I mean, I've got an affinity with Scotland anyway. My brother and his family lived in Edinburgh anyway, so I used to go up there quite a lot. So I've always loved playing in Edinburgh. They're always well. It's not anything, because Scotland is so far away.
Yeah.
One or two in Memoriam, I can't remember now. But everybody was really appreciative that you've actually gone up there, haven't they? So it was always a really good scene. So I mean, it's really good that it's really there's a strong scene, but it's a case of I still think in a way it's breaking into that sort of like UK thing, isn't it? And doing shows in London, and so, but I mean, I think you've just got to crack on with it, haven't you? Really, and take advantage of what you got up there. I mean, if you're getting a lot of shows, that kind of thing, just stick with it, really, isn't it? But it's good, it's good anyway. The fact that any band nowadays can get out there and do shows, because it's bloody hard, with the price of fuel. You've got to bloody well hire a van and. You can lug all your stuff around the country. Bloody, you've got to. Do you know what? You've got to be really into the music to actually do it. I mean, that's what I find.
That's it.
So,
well, we're just going to have to get you up here, and so that you can see for yourself, because there is a thriving scene at the moment. Like
I say, there's 2 places I really want to get DeathCollector to, and that's Scotland and Ireland. They're the 2 places I want to sort of like prioritise, basically.
Leave it with me. But I'm going to end you with a last question, and this is probably the most important question out of the whole of this interview. So you've been in this business for more than 35 years. When are you going to retire? And that's from Kieran from Ashen Crown.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's a hard one, really.
Kieran doesn't want you to retire, I don't think.
No, I know. I don't know. I'm just gonna, if I can get, do you know what? I'm gonna get another album out of the way. What I tend to do is every new year now, I tend to sit down and have a couple of beers and sort of like decide what I want to do. But at the moment, you know, my shoulders are okay. I'm still performing to a level that I'm happy with. But I don't know, another album or two probably. I think I always think, because like, you know, like being, like I say, I keep saying I'm 58 now. I'll be 59 this year. But when I was, you know, that 18-year-old Andy Way at the gigs, and you know, you always used to see that one guy that was probably about 35 or something. You go, look at him, oh God, yeah. You know, it's different now, because a lot of the lads that I grew up with, you know, like that used to come to the Bolt Pro shows, they're all still out and about anyway. So it's, the dynamics have changed now, haven't they? You know, it's a lot more, you know. But I don't know.
Well,
it's a hard question to answer. It could be next week, or it could be, you know, another. But probably
it depends on what your body's telling you, isn't it? So
yeah, I'm going to get, like I say, I've committed to another album, so I'm going to do another album, and then I will do it. But
good stuff.
The thing is, I mean, it's if I decided not to do another album, I would say Death's Toll is probably, I would be really happy if that was my last album, you know, because it's a quality album. But
yeah,
that's my view.
Well, that's a fitting end to end this interview. We will continue to do a bit for Moshville Times for DeathCollector, and I will continue to play on Moshville Radio. Kieran doesn't give me peace and quiet, so I'm sure that he'll get me involved in a few more things, all things DeathCollector. But yeah, I wish you good health, and I'm hoping it's going to be more than one album. But I know my dad will be happy when you do retire, because he can get his garden canes back.
That's it, yeah. Like I say, I'm going to keep going. Do you know what? It's just a case of I think about it and think, do you know what? Do I want to do it? And then it's like with my shoulder. I did my shoulder and thought, that's it. And then I spent so much time getting my shoulder sorted that I thought, well, why have I spent all this time getting my shoulder sorted to be able to drum it if I'm not going to drum anymore? And so I'm just an old. I just like it too much, I think.
Why have you stopped playing the drums? Could you play the bass?
Yeah, I moan like bugger about being in a band. In a way, it's a love-hate thing with me. You know what I mean? It's sort of, but I don't. I think you'll probably see me keeling over at some gig one day. Andy's just falling off the drum kit, piss. No, it's not it. Yeah, so it's. Well, I'll keep going anyway. But anyway, nice to speak to you, mate.
Absolutely, Andy, and I'll do all the things that I can for DeathCollector. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Keep bashing those canes.
Garden canes. I will.